Okay, Christy, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. The podcast name is Mindful Souls, and it's all about exploring and listening to people's stories and insights, their professional life, or whatever it might be that may give us some tools to be more mindful and aware on our emotions, on our bodies and minds. And I'm so grateful to have you here because you're a specialist in hypnotherapy. Personally, I've been hearing so much about hypnotherapy, and I've never got an understanding of what it was before we had our session. So I'll just like to ask you if you could clarify with us what hypnotherapy is, because we hear all these things, the subconscious and remembering past lives. And so, how would you explain what hypnotherapy is?
Sure. First of all, I want to thank you for having me, and I'm really happy to be here, and I'm happy to share what hypnotherapy is. I
Mhm.
think the easiest way to put it for people to easily understand is hypnotherapy is a guided meditation with a goal. So if you have a goal in mind, you go into a meditative state so that you can more easily manifest that goal, more easily find the things that are blocking you from achieving that goal. And so essentially during a hypnotherapy session, if you want me to go more in detail, it's a guided meditation where you're lowering your brainwave state from a beta brainwave down to an alpha brainwave, down to a theta brainwave, which is when you're most relaxed, most creative, and most easily um, suggestible. So when you're in this creative meditative state, you can give your mind suggestions and you can suggest it to bring you back to the root cause of a problem that you have. And when you can go back to the root cause of a problem, you can fix it more easily. Oftentimes, if we are in a beta brainwave, we're stressed out, we're stimulated, it's hard to figure out our problems. It's hard to remember the reason why we aren't doing the things we know we're supposed to be doing. And so when you get yourself into a meditative state, you're relaxed, you're creative, you can solve your own problems, and you can download insights, and you can also rewire your subconscious. And while you're rewiring your subconscious, you're telling it empowering words, empowering thoughts, reminding you to be more confident, to be more empowered by yourself, believe in yourself. You're
Mhm.
strengthening your own beliefs.
Yeah,
Does that answer your question?
yeah, yes. It's like it's so interesting because actually I think we all kind of try to analyze our past, but most of the times we do so in when we are experiencing alpha ways or when we are like so nervous. It's like, oh, what happened? Well, we
Mm-hmm.
had our session, and yes, I actually understand that for the first time. I mean, yes, for one of the first time, I intentionally went back to my past, but from a place of calmness and ease. And I just realized this that previously I've always done this by means of stress, and I never actually find the stillness first before that is such an interesting thing. If we want to understand our past, it's actually way more productive and efficient if we do so from a place of calmness.
Exactly. A lot of times, if we're trying to analyze what our issues are, what our problems are, we're already in a current state of high stress. We're already in a highly stimulated state. So if you're trying to think of past events in this state, it's going to bring more stress to you. It's going to bring more unease. So if you were to go back to all the events in your past, that created the stress in the first place, that created the, whether it be little t trauma or big T trauma, if you're going back to that event or that memory in a state that you're not ready to be in to review the past, it's going to create more trauma. It's going to
Mhm.
create more stress. But if you go back in a more neutral, calm state, you can actually look at it from the outside from a more just understanding place. so that you're not triggered by emotion. The thing about
Mm.
humans is between emotion and logic, emotion always overpowers logic. So if you're in an emotional, stressed out state, it's really hard to figure out your problems. It's really hard to break free from negative patterns, negative thought loops. So you bring yourself into a meditative state, a calm state, and you can sort through your problems from a more objective point of view so that
Mm.
you just look at it with a better state of being, look at it in a better state of mind.
Mm. Yes, this is so insightful. For me, really, I've always been approaching my past from a place of, yeah, confusion. And another question I have for you is that one of my pre-beliefs that was totally irrational, now I understand after working with you, was that hypnotherapy involved a lot like making up things, someone guiding you through this meditative state where you're highly suggestible and therefore it's easier for you to make up crazy stories. And so I believe there's people out there who would like to try hypnotherapy but are scared because
Mm-hmm,
they are worrying that they will come up with things that never existed in the first place. And
mm-hmm,
maybe the hypnotherapy, that person that is guiding them through the session, will make them believe they were true.
mm-hmm.
So I would like to ask you if you could clarify this, because from my perspective, during our session, I didn't have the impression you were leading me to the creation of any idea of any memory that never happened. And I would like the audience to understand this. Yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, that's a great question to ask. The thing about hypnosis and hypnotherapy is, yes, it is a state of relaxation. It is a place where you're more easily suggestible, but the misconception that people have comes from the way Hollywood has portrayed hypnosis. There are movies out there and there are stage hypnosis events that make people think that it has to do with mind control and getting someone to do something ridiculous. And that's the entertainment factor. That's the thing that people think of when they think of hypnosis, hypnotherapy, and even though there is some truth to that, it's been portrayed in a way that gets more attention. Oftentimes, when people are trying to get more attention, they're going to create a scene or a performance that makes it more interesting, more appealing for people to watch, but not necessarily something that's going to educate the audience. So
Mm.
people who think hypnosis is mind control or getting you to bark like a dog, getting you to cluck like a chicken, that's just the entertainment factor. That's
Yeah.
people coming to watch it for entertainment, not for education. If we look at it from an educational standpoint, hypnosis is a state of relaxation. And when you're relaxed, you can give yourself suggestions. So a good hypnotherapist is going to suggest that you get relaxed, is going to suggest that you find what the root cause of your problem is, and also to suggest that you give yourself more empowering words, more positive words, because everyone can suggest things to themselves. We can all influence our own mind. And so it's just putting yourself in a place where you can more easily influence yourself. So what
Mm.
I'm doing in my work is I'm getting you into a relaxed state where we can influence your mind in an empowering way. We're influencing your mind in a way that's healing, that helps you bring clarity to your life, to help you think more clearly. And so, like, if we can give ourselves weird suggestions like bark like a dog and cluck like a chicken, we can also give ourselves suggestions like go be the CEO of your life, go write your story, go take action today, go live your best life. It's the same thing, except we're using it for good and not for entertainment.
Mm. Yeah. And despite whether we want it or not, we're constantly suggesting our mind. It's just we're not conscious of it. We're really not
Exactly.
conscious of it. And that's why I
Mm-hmm.
believe for a lot of us, we need someone like you who guides us through this process and makes this self-suggestion process we constantly carry out mindful and happening with awareness. Every day you go and you say, "Oh my God, I'm so bad. Oh my God, I'll never reach that goal. Oh, this thing is going bad." And that's also constantly. But when we had our session, yeah, actually we slowed down and I was really mindful about what I was thinking with myself.
A lot of people don't realize how powerful their thoughts are and how powerful their words are. You make one silly mistake and you can call yourself stupid, and your subconscious mind accepts that as truth. It's going to believe that you are stupid, and it's going to influence your behaviors, and it's going to continuously mislead you to think that you really are stupid and influence your behaviors. You're going to start behaving like you are a not very educated person because you've suggested to your mind that you're not very intelligent, that you're stupid. Or let's say you experience an event where someone makes a negative comment about your appearance. And for that split second, you might believe that comment. You might believe that, oh, you are ugly or you are unattractive. And for that one split second, that's you suggesting to your own mind. And then consciously, you're not going to even know that you've subconsciously suggested that into your own mind. And it could affect the way you operate, it can affect the way you show up in the world, it can affect your confidence. And so it's really important that we always give our minds positive suggestions, positive programming.
Yeah. And Nulas, I'm curious, how did you started this process of hypnotherapy? Because I remember you
Uh,
mentioned me quickly your story, but it was so interesting. I would like to ask you if you could share that with us.
Yeah, so I had an amazing career. I was a middle school math teacher and I lived a very good life. I had tenure by the time I was a second year teacher, which means I had a permanent position. I owned a house, but after my first year as a teacher, so after a year of teaching, I owned a house. I had a permanent position. I made a decent income. I lived a very comfortable life with my dogs. And I felt like I should have been so much happier than I was, but I wasn't. I kept feeling like something was missing, something was not quite there. So, as successful as I was still pretty depressed, pretty unhappy. And from that place of depression and unhappiness, I finally allowed myself to explore my curiosities. I decided one summer to take a solo road trip with my dogs, and I took them across the country. We drove from California to Utah, to Colorado, to Oklahoma, to Texas, to New Mexico, to Arizona. And during this process of figuring out why I was not happy, hypnotherapy came to me very unexpectedly. At the end of my 2 week road trip with my dogs, I came home and I felt like it wasn't home anymore. And I just became very curious. And one night, 3 a.m., I woke up, I'm scrolling on Instagram, and I find a free masterclass on hypnotherapy. It was conducted by a woman named Marissa Peer, and I get so curious about Marissa Peer and her hypnotherapy. And so I go through her masterclass in the middle of the night. I listen to it for an hour and a half, and she's talking about hypnosis and she's explaining the process. And at the very end of the masterclass, she guides me through this audio session where I'm putting myself in hypnosis and I'm going through the entire process. I'm regressing to these memories that I had not even thought about in so long. And I realized, oh my goodness, this is why I operate the way I do. These are the suggestions that I've been giving myself my whole life. And it's a long story. Do you want me to tell about the session itself?
Yeah, please. I'm curious.
Yeah, so it's the middle of the night. I'm listening to it. I have my eyes closed. I'm laying in bed, and Marissa guides me through the session. And I just go through it because I'm so curious. And I'm in a place of almost like desperation. I'm so desperate to find happiness. I'm so desperate to figure out why I can't be happy. And so the first memory that I get regressed back to is actually of me as a baby in the incubator. And
Mhm.
I remembered in that moment that my mom had shown me a picture of myself as a baby, a newborn baby inside the incubator with wires attached to me. And the story that I told myself from seeing that image is that I'm a weak being, that I'm incapable, that I will always be sick. And so that's the suggestion or the programming I had been operating with my whole life. The next thing that came up was when I was only 5 or 6 years old. And there was a moment where I had just made my first best friend, and she was at my house. We were eating dinner. And when I walked away from the dinner table, my mom pulled me aside and she said, "Hey, you need to make better choices in friends. I saw your friend take food out of your bowl." And in that moment, I lost faith and belief in my own judgment. So, as
Mm.
the 5 year old kid, I truly believed that I had poor judgment in people and that I didn't know how to make friends. And so that influenced the way I made friends the rest of my life, the way I connected with other people. I couldn't trust myself to deeply connect with anybody because I was afraid to make a mistake in who I chose to spend time with, to interact with, to make friendships with. And then the final scene that came up was when the Game Boy first came out, and I was about maybe 9 or 10 years old. And there was a moment where my mom asked me, "Would you like to have one?" And I said to her, "Don't waste your money on me." And so, as the 9 or 10 year old me, I had told myself this story of I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I should not be worth um, my mom's money, spending it on a
Mm.
Game Boy for me. And so, after that middle of the night session, I realized that we all have these subconscious things that are influencing us, and it's not our fault.
Mm.
So I was able to free myself from this feeling of like there's something wrong with me. Like, why am I unhappy when I have a beautiful house, a beautiful life, a beautiful job, a job that I love so much? Like, why am I still not happy? And then I realized, oh, it's because I have all these suggestions in my subconscious that I'm unaware of. I had no idea that I was operating from a place of I'm weak, I'm sick, I'm not enough, I make poor judgment. Like, it was just a lot of distrust in myself. And when I was able to come to this awareness, I freed myself of these, not only these negative beliefs, but I freed myself of this thinking that there's something wrong with me. And I realized that if this is how I operate, this is how many people operate. And then I was able to be more kind and compassionate towards myself, kind and compassionate towards others. And because of this one session, I got so curious and so passionate. I went and became a hypnotherapist myself. I went to study with Marissa Peer herself and enrolled into her school, graduated, and just started doing this for other people. And it's been amazing since I discovered hypnotherapy. I was able to, one, meet my partner, two, sell my house and quit my job. So that's three actually. Sell my house, quit my job. And I was able to move to Austin, Texas, and start this career full time. And so it just gave me a lot of courage, a lot of confidence. And I would not be where I am today if it weren't for hypnotherapy.
Christy, thank you for sharing that. It's, I mean, it's nice because you're
Hmm.
not ashamed of your past conditioning, you know, of your past limitations. And we all
Hmm.
have them. We all have
Hmm.
them. Many of us are not aware of them. But however, when do we become aware? Often we feel like, oh my God, all this trouble with me. I don't want others to know. I don't want. So no, I really appreciate that you shared your past negative conditioning. And as you said, yeah, we all have them. We're all humans, and it's not. It is our parents' fault. It is our environment's fault, but we want it or not, we all get these suggestions from people. So it's not people that
Hmm.
are bad. It's just how we tend to grow up. And making these things, putting them in a place of awareness where we can see them. Wow, it's amazing the change that brought to your life, and the courage
Yeah,
you
yeah.
had to quit your job, to sell your house, and to follow hypnotherapy, the school. That's admirable. That's admirable. Yeah.
Thank you.
And this courage that you felt to follow your passion or intuition or your heart, however, whatever
Hmm.
you might call it, stemmed from this session you had, or that was what
Yeah, so
initiated it?
yeah, the very first session, which was from a recorded audio, that gave me a whole new perspective on how I operate. And from that one session, I started changing the way I taught. So when I was still a teacher at the time, I incorporated daily affirmations. Every single day, my students would do affirmations out loud. We would speak them out loud in the
Mm,
classroom,
that's
and
amazing.
I just became so cautious on every single interaction I had with each student. So the words I use, the way I encouraged students, and the way
Mm,
I requested that the students speak to each other. We just established things in my classroom that I would have not done had I not been
mm,
exposed to the subconscious and the conscious. And if I was not exposed to this hypnotherapy session, I wouldn't have been able to implement so many things that I did in my classroom. And from that one session, I started reading a lot of books, and I started following a lot of inspirational people that I had not followed in the past. I started getting really curious. And while I was studying hypnotherapy, the program required us to do practice sessions with other students. And so I was getting session after session from other students, and I was giving session after session to other students. And so through being in the program, I continued to heal, continue to explore my own subconscious, to continue to just find all the limiting beliefs, all the non-empowering suggestions that I had given to myself. And something that transformed my life was actually my relationship, my romantic relationship. I could not figure out why I kept dating the same guy over and over again. I kept dating these people that were not good for me, and I would see all the red flags, and I would know that I deserve more. I would know that I can do better, but I just wouldn't. And from hypnotherapy, I realized I had all of these patterns because of specific incidences from my past that were subconsciously influencing the way I dated, the way I operated with men, the way I just didn't feel good enough to be with a partner that I truly felt I deserved. And so it's so fascinating how hypnotherapy changed my relationship. I currently am in a very healthy and loving relationship. And I really do believe it has to do with all the hypnotherapy that I got for myself. And even while we're in this relationship, I would find moments where I'm still falling into past patterns. and projections. And so once in a while, I'll still reach out to a colleague and say, hey, I'm having a hard time opening up to my partner. Can you give me a session on that so that I can discover what it is that's holding me back from being able to really deeply connect with my partner? Or it could be maybe I have a fear of vulnerability. I would do a session on that so that I can apply to my relationship with my partner. And now every time I have something that comes up, whether it be in my relationship, whether it be in my business, whether it be in just my day-to-day life, I'll reach out for a session just to break free from any mental barriers, to break free from any old patterns, because we all have
Mm-hmm.
patterns. We have physical patterns, whether it be like an exercising pattern or like a nail biting pattern or like a skin picking pattern. So that would be a physical pattern that people always have. Like, people always have some kind of pattern. And then there's relationship patterns, the people you choose to spend time with, the people you relate with, the people you surround yourself with. That's always going to be a pattern as well. And then business patterns could be like, maybe you have a pattern of procrastination, or maybe you have a pattern of being easily distracted, or you could
Mm-hmm.
also have a pattern of like you can't delegate because you have this feeling of I have to control everything or I have to do everything myself. And so all of these are unconscious beliefs that everybody has. And I just see it over and over and over as I've done so many sessions for other people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. I'll link all the contacts to contact you. So anyone who's interested in a session and wanting to discover more about hypnotherapy, please contact Christy. And also, I say to do this from a place of compassion. During our session, much compassion was brought to me because we often feel like we need to figure out everything. And now somebody might thinking, "Oh my God, I have all these patterns. What do I do? What do I do?" Calmness,
Yes.
because we are complicated, and it's important to approach these things really from a place of tranquility. And also, one important thing is to find an expert that knows what he or she is doing. Christy again,
Mm-hmm.
being that person now, because we might tend to be emotional and see a YouTube video. In your case, it was extremely lucky, but how many times it happens that there are some sketchy people on the internet? So
Mm,
again, calmness and understanding that we must find people who are really accountable. So
mm-hmm.
please,
Mm-hmm.
I suggest you to contact Christy. He was not There was no mentalization or crazy working with our minds and making up memories. No, it was really a nice session. Christy, one thing, how should we talk to ourselves?
Mm-hmm. I think before we even speak to ourselves, it's important that we get ourselves into this feeling of gratitude and compassion and kindness. And when you're in that energy of gratitude, that energy of compassion and kindness, then we can speak words that are more empowering for ourselves, more healthy. So get yourself into that energy first, and you should always be kind and forgiving no matter what. And know that you are just like everyone else. There's nothing wrong with you. We all have a subconscious and we all have a conscious mind, and we all operate very similarly. And so if you ever feel like you're in a negative loop, don't invalidate the negative feelings. Allow yourself to feel that negativity because there's a reason it's there. It's there because of an event in your life. It's there because of a situation. It's there because you are meant to experience an emotion when things happen. So don't invalidate your feelings. Allow yourself to feel it and then let it pass. And then forgive yourself and forgive the people who have either intentionally or unintentionally harmed you, because there's so many layers to it. So always be kind, compassionate, and give yourself empowering suggestions, but also don't invalidate the negativity, the the negative emotions. Embrace both.
Mm, yes. Thank you, Christy. That is such a nice message. It's life is a roller coaster of emotion. It's intense. It's intense. We experience so much in a day, but nevertheless, we can do something to experience a more positive set of emotions. And talking to ourselves with compassion and understanding our past conditioning, living the present
Mhm,
moment, and allowing everything there is to be.
mhm.
It's it's very important. Christy, thank you for your time. I appreciated a lot our conversation. I hope that the mindful souls here will investigate more about hypnotherapy, about the power of the subconscious on our lives. Thank you. Thank you for your
Yeah.
time.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm
Thank you.
happy to continue working with you and support you in any way. Yeah, have a lovely one. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Mm. Thank you, Christy.